year for ET specifically were Texas Instruments, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Cisco, out of which Texas Instruments is a company that takes for analog, digital, as well as software-related roles, whereas NVIDIA, Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Cisco do take for digital and software-related roles. The major difference between analog and digital is analog roles tend to focus a little bit more on MUI and MUI ATVT-related concepts, whereas digital roles play a very large emphasis on topics taught in digital design. I will go into detail about some of the topics that are important specifically. And while a lot of the process for these different companies differs, the overall process as a whole is very similar. There are just one or two steps that are different. And I'll be going into Qualcomm specifically first. So Qualcomm is a US-based chipset manufacturing company. They were established in 1985 and they're headquartered in San Diego, California. And in India, they are established in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, and Noida, out of which Hyderabad and Bangalore are two of the bigger two of the bigger offices, and Chennai and Noida are comparatively smaller. They manufacture the Snapdragon chipsets, which you would have probably heard in advertisements for most of your phones and tablets that you see in the present day. Like most of your Android phones like Oppo, Vivo, or OnePlus do have Snapdragon chipsets. Other than that, they have been the pioneer in wireless communications technology since the 1980s. They were the ones who patented the code division multiple access, which is the governing technology for 2G. And currently, they were the pioneers for 5G as well. So if you have Wi-Fi on your phone, it's a lot thanks to Qualcomm. And what is a chipset specifically? It's like the CPU, it's like the brain of your phone. It has the CPU, it has the memory, it has your modem, everything is on this singular chip. Specifically, if you're applying for hardware, you will be involved in the design and testing of this chipset, which is, you'll be in the design and verification process. You will be involved in design for test, which is a specific way where you modify your design just for the testing purpose, or you will be involved in the CPU design itself. And so coming to the application process for Qualcomm, so there are two different roles that Qualcomm comes for. Qualcomm comes for both hardware and software roles. Software is open to CS, ECE, EEE, and ENI, and hardware is open to ECE, EEE, and ENI. At least this is how it was in the previous year. And to give you a number specifically, this, again, I'm not going to guarantee that this is the same number that will be in the current year. Yeah, say nothing. This was the number of offers that they had made when I had been appearing for the internship process. They had made 9 offers in software and 2 in hardware. But this number varies every year, where some years they come for software, some years they don't come for software. So I wouldn't be guaranteed on this. Regarding CGPA, most ET companies in general have a CGPA cutoff in the range of 7 to 7.5. Qualcomm specifically was 7.5. And the procedure for shortlisting was an online test and a technical interview. If you pass the online test, you can move on to the technical interview stage. Coming to the online test had 2 different sections that you had to attempt. The first section was a general section, which you could, a general section which was open to both the hardware and the software role. The second section was an optional one where you had to decide between you were applying for the hardware role or the software role. Where this is where the doubt comes in, whether you should apply for the hardware or the software role. I would say that if you are in EEE, ECE, ENI and you're still considering an IT role, but you're also confused between IT or an ET summer internship specifically, Qualcomm is probably one of the best companies to try to apply for software, as they do take ECE students, or they do take ECE EEE students as well in software roles. I think in the current batch, there were 3 people from ECE who had gotten a software internship at Qualcomm. And and it is definitely one of the companies where you can explore both the hardware and software side. It is a little bit flexible in that sense. The online test specifically, the general section had logical reasoning and questions on computer programming and some very, very basic concepts from your EEE courses. The hardware section was more specific in your EEE questions, where it asked a lot of questions from digital design or some questions on control systems, where you had to figure out like the stability states for a second order system, things like that. And yeah, that was the online test specifically. uh, if we have Yeah, if you get through the online test, you will be selected for the interview. The interview mainly had questions in the following topics: analog and digital electronics basics, which was like uh, mainly you had to answer questions on how to make a NAND gate or an OR gate with just PMOS and NMOS. And there was a question on the difference between a flip flop and a latch. My interview did mention Python programming because I had mentioned that I know Python in my resume. And there was a question on static timing analysis, as my interviewer was from the static timing analysis team from Bangalore. And yeah, I know a little bit on CMOS circuits. To specify, like go specifically into course material that has to be recapped for this. Very specifically, digital design is probably your most important course when coming to a company like Qualcomm, or like sitting for an internship at a company at Qualcomm, like, or any digital role for that matter, will play a heavy emphasis on digital design, as this is the only course that deals with digital electronics. And you need to probably be thorough with finite state machines, static timing analysis, Verilog, what are flip flops and latches and counters. I did put a star next to static timing analysis and Verilog because they are topics that aren't covered sufficiently in course material, whereas the other topics I feel are covered to a like an amount that if you go through your class notes, that is enough for those topics. But static timing analysis and Verilog specifically are two topics which I would feel that you should try and do some external research for, or there are some resources I have provided towards the end of this PPT. Static timing analysis, if I had to explain, is where you test your chip or for setup or hold time violations, where you try to make sure your chip is running within the time limit that is required. It is very important because your clock will be running at a specific frequency, and if your values do not reach your required destination in time, it could cause a problem to the entire chip. In fact, that is what my project is mainly working on. I'm working on static timing analysis for a specific chipset that they will be rolling out in the future. And other than digital design, that doesn't mean just focus on digital design. There are other topics like in basics of ES, which is like KCL, KVL, of course, you have to remember. You need to know about making circuits out of PMOS and NMOS. And you have, second order system analysis or Nyquist stability criteria, where these are not as much focused on, but they might be asked in the the online test. Uh, Other than that, some general tips I would like to give for the test and the interview. Before you go into the interview, of course, do some research about the company because they do ask questions about the company in general. This is not specific to Qualcomm. This is more for any company, the internships that you are planning to sit for. And yeah, be thorough with everything on your resume. As much as it might be tempting to inflate what you know on your resume and show it off, it is probably better to stick to exactly what you know, such that you don't get asked questions where you're stumped in your interviews. For example, like if you write that you're very proficient in something but you don't know it in your interview, it can be a factor that sways them in one direction or another. um, yeah, any of the projects that you have worked on in the past, they do tend to ask questions on that as well. They tend to ask you about your previous internships, previous projects, because they would like to see your technical knowledge and such things. And one of my most important pieces of advice is that if there is a question in the interview or the online test, like this is more for the interview than the online test, interview specifically, try to explain your methodology to solve the question. In case there is a question that is put forth to you, but you don't understand how exactly to solve the question immediately, don't immediately reply to the interviewer saying, "Oh, I don't know," because that is something that there are cases where they will ask you questions and they know that you don't know the answer. They know for a fact that you probably won't get the answer. What they are looking for is for you to try and explain your thought process to answer such a question. Because in an internship, you are not going to be given the direct answer to any of your questions. You will have to be able to think of an answer, or like think of a way to come up with an answer to a question that you don't know. and they are more analyzing your process, your thought process, the things you already know, and how you plan to apply them even to a question that you don't know the answer for. That itself is a factor that is something that they will consider when they are going through your interview. And one more thing I would like to mention is that don't consider time of an interview as something as a factor that, oh, my interview was very short, maybe I'm not going to get selected or something like that. uh, in the online test as well, I would like to mention that as far as I remember, there was no negative marking. So it is fine if you take a guess at a question, maybe because sometimes it is like you can make a very educated guess in some points. Just don't leave the question. Yeah, the online test was fully multiple choice. There were no questions that were subjective or anything. So definitely try to take educated guesses wherever possible. Uh, as I mentioned previously, here are some resources for Verilog and static timing analysis specifically. This is because Verilog is not covered in our syllabus as much. It is covered in computer architecture, which I would suggest if you end up getting a digital role in any PT company for that matter, do try to take computer architecture in your 3-2 or 4-2, because it does tend to be helpful to have an idea. It does tend to be helpful to have an idea of Verilog, because a lot of hardware projects specifically are done in Verilog. And static timing analysis, this is a YouTube channel that has some good videos on static timing analysis. It's definitely worth checking out. Um, Other than that, that is pretty much everything I had to say. Uh, if there is anything else, you can definitely reach out. I think the PPT will be provided to you all. Yeah, that is all from my side. Thank you.
So we'll move on to next speaker. Our next speaker is Raashi Vanwani, who is a chemistry plus electrical and electronics engineering student of the 2020 batch, who has received an offer of summer associate from the Boston Consulting Group, which is a prestigious company part of the elite MBB tier in consulting. Previously, she has also worked at Life Guru as a product intern. On campus, she was part of the Junior Placement Committee, Embryo, and Chemistry Association. Raashi, please share your journey with us. Thank you.
Hi everyone, just give me a second to present my slide. Just let me know if it's visible and I'm audible to you all.
Yeah, you are audible and we can see your slides also.
Okay, so introduction to consulting. Uh, just something before we begin here. I'm not someone who began consulting in second or third year. As he mentioned, I have a product background. I did a product internship with a startup called Life Guru in Bangalore. And that is when BCG came for campus internships. I applied, my resume got shortlisted. And that is when I began studying about consulting, beginning with just setting the expectations straight. What can you expect from this talk? We'll have a quick intro to consulting. What does life in consulting look like? What are the opportunities that are available to undergraduates? What should your ideal profile look like? How should your resume be? And a quick overview of what case interviews are. We will not go into intricacies of case solving because we have limited time frame. We will not discuss whether you should get into consulting with or without an MBA or compare it with any other career options that are there. A quick intro to consulting. In simple words, consulting is your client coming to you with a problem that they want to solve, and you have to think out of the box, prepare a strategy, analyze data, and figure out how to solve their problem. uh, there are different type of problems that consultants come up with. Like the consultants face those kind of problems when clients come to them. Say a client is facing decline in profits, or the number of products sold is decreasing, or say a client has a product that they have already launched in US and that is performing well there. Should they launch it in India? Is India a good market? And if they do launch here, what is the strategy that they should have? There can be multiple cases that you can choose once you join as an associate or a senior associate. For example, you can be asked to make an auction strategy for a two-time IPL winning team. Or right now, there are interesting cases that my fellow summer associates are working on. Something like doing a CASA transformation for a bank, or deciding the auction bid for an airport that's coming up. The multiple roles that there are, you will join as a summer associate. If you get in, if you are an engineering student, you join as an associate. But if you are an MBA student, you join as a senior associate. Above that, there is partner. Above that, there is principal, then there is partner, and then there is managing director partner. The companies that are there in the consulting sector, there is MBB, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and you also have big four companies, Deloitte, PwC, EY, and KPMG. These are the seven companies that you will usually see coming for placements. Apart from that, Kearney, Goodera, and Indus Insights, they come for PS2. Other companies, whether they come or not, depends upon the season, how it's going, the different factors that are there. But these seven will come for sure. Why should you join consulting? Consulting gives you cross industry exposure. There can be multiple industry cases that you can work on, and you have the freedom to choose the type of case you want. You can fill a preference, and that's how the cases are allotted, not for interns, but for full time roles. And one thing really good about consulting is that you work on the same level as your fellow employees. You have direct engagement with them, you are treated as an equal, you are working on the same problem, there is no hierarchy as such, so you get to learn a lot. I've inserted a slide about how does a day in the life of an ideal consultant look like. You can read it later whenever you have time. These slides will be provided to you. But before you get into consulting, what's important is how should your resume look like, because that is what will get you in. There are four sections in your resume. First is academics, second is work experience, third is PORs, and fourth is your extracurricular activities. What do consulting companies look for in a candidate? They want to see spikes in your resume. Now, that spike can be anything. It can be a really good CGPA, or it can be internships in good companies, or product internships, or VC internships, or you can have good PORs that show that you have leadership skill. And otherwise too, there can be research internships that they really look for. There can be sports, you can be fond of extracurricular activity, you have gone to competitions, you have won them, or you've been part of case competitions, something like that. Crafting the resume is very important. For me myself, I have undergone like 50 drafts of my resume till today. I go to them till today to just review my resume every time I make one. And that is really important. And I think a lot of people focus on case prep, but they never really spend enough time building the right resume. What should a resume ideally look like? It should be a one-page resume. The font size is fixed, and you should be particular about that. There should be no spelling or grammatical errors. You should not do any storytelling. Everything should be in points. The first word of every line should be an action verb, say demonstrated, analyzed, focused, words like that. You don't have to make generic statements. There are specific formats that you can follow, like there is star format. Star is situation, task, action, result. Your points should not exceed one line. Your resume should be ideally in a timeline format. What happened recently at the top, what happened in the past at the bottom. And apart from that, there are few examples that I can give you to show how should your resume be. Uh, Whenever you write the name of a company, just below that you write a line in italics writing about what does the company or the organization do. And you cannot write something like I got 10th rank in this competition. You have to mention I got 10th rank out of so many participants to show the impact of the competition that you were a part of. Apart from that, you have to show personal impact. You don't have to write my team did this. I was a part of a 10-member team that did this, and this was my particular contribution. They do not want to hear what was the combined effect of your team working there. What was your impact is what is important here. Just two or three examples to understand how it works. say the first draft was worked with sales team to increase the usage of Microsoft Teams amongst a set of clients. And then someone writes increased monthly client engagement on Teams by 5% by integrating XYZ. This shows that the person has actually created impact by working in terms of numbers. Using numbers in lines is important, highlighting numbers is important. And then you write the action. You first write your impact, followed by the action. And then say you have to show the result of the situation or the task that you have a part of, like working on site on a 25 crore layout for restructuring a project. But then you like write something like developing a framework as a part of this much budget project expected to cut out cycle time. This shows the result of the work that you are doing, and that is important here. Preparing for a case interview, just a quick intro. What is a case? It's an open-ended problem. It can be anything. One of my friends had a case. You have a plot. What would you do with it? Such an open question, right? You can build a school on it. You can build a company on it. You can build a park on it. How do you go about that problem? So your structure is important. Out of box thinking is important. How do you classify things in a way that your structure is messy, mutually exclusive, and completely exhaustive? Your points are not intersecting with each other. Your buckets are very different from each other. That is important. Then there are basic frameworks that everyone studies. The first type of case is profitability case. The example that I gave before, a company is facing decline in profits. What would they do? Something like that. Second is guesstimates. Say you have a aeroplane. How many balls can you fit in it? That is a guesstimate type of problem. C is market entry. Again, you have to enter a market. What should your strategy be? Is it an ideal market? What is the customer size of the market that you're entering? Something like that. And unconventional is something like you are given a plot and what would you do? These are four type of ideal cases in ideal frameworks that you can study. How do you prep for your case interviews? First thing is always resume draft. Please focus on this. Don't keep this for last moment. What happens is a lot of people make their resumes in the last 2 days, and then your seniors also have like 50 resumes that they have to review. Obviously, they wouldn't give time enough to your resume, even if they want to. Make sure you do this from the start. Case prep material is available everywhere. You can see PU's material. There are a lot of websites online. You can study. If you have any problems related to this, you can reach out to them. One more thing is having a case group. Do not just read case books and try to learn consulting from that. You will always learn consulting by doing mock cases. For me, I was doing like 5 to 6 mock cases minimum for 10 days before my interview, and that really helped me. What is the general timeline? How does it work? Uh, you will release an announcement for resumes. Then BCG will conduct a resume building session where your BITSy and seniors will tell you how should your resume look like. Then you submit your resume. Resume shortlist begins. And then there is a buddy process. Everyone is allotted a primary buddy and a secondary buddy. Primary buddy is someone who is just from your immediate year, who just got in. These people do mock cases with you, guide you about how should you go like. Then sixth is for someone who's joining permanently. Then you have 2 rounds of interviews and then you get the results. What to expect from an interview? They'll begin by seeing your resume. You will give an intro. There can be fit questions like what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, something like that. And then there is the actual case. They'll give you a problem statement that you have to solve. And the fourth is they'll ask you if you have any questions that you want to ask them. One thing is, in reality, when you do mock cases, your interviewer drives the case. But when you do a real case, you have to make sure that you drive the case. You ask questions. You are the one who's deciding in which direction your interview should go. That's all you need. All the best. In case you have any doubts, you can reach out to me. We can take the questions later.
Thank you so much, Raashi. So we'll move on with our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mrinal Ratho, who is a chemical engineering student from the batch of 2021, who has bagged a summer internship at ExxonMobil. She has also previously worked at the Institute of Minerals and Materials Technology as a research intern. On campus, she was also part of the Student Alumni Relations Cell and IICHE BITS Pilani chapter. Let's hear about her experience.
Hi everyone, give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mrinal.
Alright. Alright, is my PPT visible?
It's loading right now. Yeah, okay. It's visible now.
Alright. Yeah, to start off with, hi guys, I'm Mrinal Ratho, a fourth year student in B Chemical Engineering, currently at Bangalore, interning for ExxonMobil Chemicals Division. All right, let's quickly jump on to the contents. Again, what is the sector which we work for ExxonMobil? It is a chemical-based company, so it is usually open to branches like chemical and mechanical exclusively. And the job profile can be anything ranging from your technical roles, basing from your supply chain, business analytics, marketing and sales, research and development. So as an intern, you are exposed to a lot of verticals and they test where you fit in. So the location and duration, as I said, location can be three places. Exxon does have its headquarters in Houston, Texas. So we're not taking to the headquarters because we're interns again. But in India, there are three centers. There is Mumbai, there is Delhi NCR, and there's Bangalore, which is the head office. So you're posted here for about 8 to 9 weeks. The CGPA criteria is 7.5 plus. They mention it as 7 plus, but it's safe to say that it's 7.5 plus. And all right, moving on to a bit about the company. ExxonMobil, it's one of the largest publicly traded international oil and natural gas companies. So we are the largest refiner and marketer of petroleum products. So, which I mean, our chemical company is also one of the largest in the world. What we deal with is polypropylene and polyethylene, the plastics which you come across in your daily life. And our operations range from R&D. As I said, we have a wide variety of operations. So even if you are looking for a core role and you still inclined towards exploring other verticals like supply chain, sales and marketing, and you also want to solve real world cases, you can definitely apply for this company. Go ahead. Okay, moving on. So let's come to the most important part. So the stages of assessment. We had the pre-placement talk first. So we got to know about the company's culture. The company was here to present what all work they do in India, what are the opportunities once you get outside India, and what are the value chain which they operate in, and what is in for us as interns. So it's very important that you attend the pre-placement talk. A lot of people, I remember in my batch, who were very capable of getting into the internship, did miss the pre-placement talk. And the pre-placement talk is a very good opportunity to understand what the company wants from us, and also get into the synergies with which our values match to the company. Right. So do attend the pre-placement talk if you wish to apply. Moving on, the online aptitude test. This is the first screening round. It consists of logical reasoning, numerical aptitude, and English. So numerical aptitude might be your quantitative based questions. It might be statistics, a bit about data analysis. So it's similar to the BitSat pattern, but a bit more challenging. So I'd advise you to practice a few questions, because time management here is very important when it comes to 45 minutes and 60 questions. So for me, it was 45 minutes, 60 questions. I'm not sure if they will be having the same thing for other interns. But yeah, so for this, you can also practice online aptitude tests from India Bix. I'll share the link. It's there in the last slide also. You can practice aptitude tests from there. Apart from that, you should time your test. If you're good at online aptitude test, then you should also try to minimize the time taken for every question. And as far as I know, this also did not have negative marking, so go ahead and give an educated guess to all the questions. Okay, Moving on to the group discussion. Group discussion, again, it's a 30 minutes thing. It consists of 4 to 5 students, and the topic would be displayed 3 minutes prior to the start of the GD. And you'll get 1 minute to speak about the topic, and then probably discuss amongst yourself as the GD proceeds. So for GD, I would advise you to keep yourselves updated in terms of what all is happening in the chemical sector, in the energy sector, to be very specific, because now we are having very rapid developments in climate change and sustainability. So for me, the topic was, I remember, decarbonization, something related to decarbonization and carbon trading. So be sure that you are abreast with what all developments are going on in the chemical industry, or for that matter, if you are applying to companies such as Hindustan Unilever or Pidilite, so you should be aware of the company's policies and what is the value chain it operates on. So yeah, for GD, I would suggest, if you get no resources and you're still looking for something to read, go ahead and read newspapers. That is the first source that helped me a lot in order to frame my points, because when you're given a random topic and you don't know much about it, you can relate it to the knowledge which you have, the prior knowledge which you have, and then you can drive the GD to your own interest and your own direction. But you should make sure that you're relevant to the topic. What you're speaking is very relevant. So yeah, I think that's the way to go about it. Again, personal interview. Yeah, personal interview, that is the eliminatory, like all of them are elimination rounds. But for personal interview, I remember there were 14 applicants who were selected for the personal interview, and only 2 of us got in. So this is the deciding round. Be sure that you know everything which you've mentioned on your resume. Your resume here is the first point of contact for your interviewer. So he'll be reviewing your resume and he'll be asking you questions based on that. So the first thing you need to do is introduce yourself very well. While giving an introduction, you should make sure you highlight your spikes very, very efficiently, because there you get a chance to drive the discussion. So for example, if you've been a part of a prestigious club, or if you've done a good project which you want to speak about, you should go ahead and start off with the introduction by saying that, yes, I have done this project, and I have contributed in this sector. All right, so prepare your projects well. Again, this is something I would stress upon. Do your PS1 projects very well. If you're having a good project at hand in PS, it is very important that you're able to contribute something very significant and get an impact out of it. So impact is something which the company always focuses on. Any company for that matter will definitely focus on what impact you bring to the organization and what impact have you created as an intern in prior organizations. Okay. Moving on, brushing up your CDCs. Okay, this is something which might not be required for interns. As interns, I remember we did not have very many technical questions based on our CDCs. But in case you must have seen in your superset profile that there is a section called courses completed, and you might go ahead and mention few of your chemical CDCs there. So if you mentioned a CDC called fluid mechanics or material science, for that matter, for chemicals, I remember these were the 2 courses I mentioned. So you need to be very thorough about the contents of this course, because they might end up asking you some questions related to the CDC. So in case you are not aware of it, be frank and just let them know that you're not aware. But again, if you want to take a try, do explain your thought process to them. As Akshaya said, that is very true for core placements as well, core interviews. So you need to explain your thought process. Just go ahead and express whatever you are thinking at that point, even if it doesn't have to be the right answer. And do not confuse the interviewer by saying a lot of irrelevant things, because the interviewer would then understand that you lack knowledge in this sector. All right. Okay. Moving on to the individual contributions. Yeah. So please make sure whenever you're talking about your experience in clubs or your experience in PORs, whatever for that matter, you need to explain what you brought out to the table. So, for example, you increase the sales or you increase the participation in a particular competition. You need to highlight that. You can't just say that you worked with the team to do this, because I mean, working with a team does not necessarily highlight what you've done as an individual, right? So please make sure you mention it in your first person. Next, read about the company. As I said, you do not need to read about the company per se. I mean, you can attend the pre-placement talk and you can understand what the company does. They do explain it very well. So, I mean, go ahead and attend the pre-placement talk. That is definitely there. If any questions about the company, you can still reach out to me. Okay. Next, resume, which is very, very important. I mean, even Raashi, I think she's stressed upon this very well. So I won't take much of your time for this. Given the star format, I particularly use the star format for my resume, which is situation, task, action, and results. You given a situation and you describe whatever task you got and your particular contribution, and then what it resulted in, what was the impact out of it, right? Again, projects and internship, I can't stress more on that. If you've done SOP, if you've done study projects or lab projects, please go ahead and mention. ExxonMobil is a technical company, so they would definitely wish to look at your PS1 SOP and lab projects, because somewhere, even if you have verticals such as marketing, or if you have a vertical such as business analytics, you still require heavy knowledge in terms of your technical CDCs. Not completely CDCs, but yeah, exposure to the industry, that is for sure. Okay, moving on to the extracurriculars. Yeah, it does look for extracurriculars. I was an ODC dancer, so I'd put that. So if you are good at sports, if you're good at debating, you can go ahead and put that in your profile. Okay, so again, your resume should be bullet points, and that should be impact driven. Next, stick to one page, please. This is very important, because a lot of people, I was reviewing the resumes for further recruitments, and I was looking at the resumes. They were not one page. And see, the thing is, your recruiters, the ones who will be coming to interview you, do not have time to look at 50 different resumes. And if you exceed by one page, that means that you're not able to summarize what all you've done properly. So be precise. All right. So moving on to the projects. So exposure at ExxonMobil, it's a very different level of exposure for me. I mean, it's been a week or two, and I've been very overwhelmed with my experience. So it gives you an opportunity to network and connect with the industry leaders and work on real life problems and create impact in them. For me, for the first few days, I was asked to understand what's the product chain of ExxonMobil, and how does it operate, what are its sources and functions. To understand that, I approached a lot of industry leaders, and I ended up talking to the CEO of ExxonMobil lubricants. So you might end up connecting and networking with these industry leaders and gain a lot of exposure in those terms. Yeah, definitely exposure to core industry. If you are not sure, if you want to get into core, or you want to do an MBA further, do go ahead and apply. There is no harm in applying, because again, an internship would teach you a lot in terms of exposure to the core industry. You will not be you'll not be burdened with a lot of work, with a lot of technical work per se. So please, make sure, if you are inclined towards MBA, you still go ahead and apply for chemical and mechanical specifically. Okay, so moving on to the presentation and PPO evaluation rounds. Yeah, there is a chance of PPO as well, and there is throughout the internship, you will be evaluated on your presentations and projects and the progress which you go on with the internship. All right, I think that's about it. So thank you so much. These are my contact details. You can reach out to me via WhatsApp as well. And for online aptitude test, I have mentioned the link. It's indiabix.com. You can go ahead and practice 30-minute, 45-minute questions. So yeah, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raashi. We'll move ahead with our next speaker, who is Akshaya Aserkar. So Akshay is an electronics and instrumentation engineering student from the batch of 2021, who has secured an internship as a silicon engineer at Microsoft. He has also previously worked at the CSIR, National Aerospace Laboratories, and was part of Team Anant on campus as a systems engineer. Let's hear out what Akshay has to say. Akshay, if you're in the meeting, could you please respond? Yes, I guess Akshay has some internet issues. Just give us 2 minutes to figure this out. The question and answer session will be post Akshay's talk. So please wait for a few more minutes.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible. There's some disturbance in between, but I guess it should be fine.
I'm sorry, I think my internet connection is not really good. So let me know if there's any issue in the between. I'll just share my screen.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Akshay Aserkar, and I am currently working as a silicon engineering intern at Microsoft India R&D. So let me just get on with the content. So I will be covering the electronics core industry in general and what all opportunities you have briefly. Then I'll talk about the selection process and eligibility of my own internship. I'll talk briefly about the CV and resume preparation, and then about the preparation for the interview itself. A few tips about the interview, and finally I'll give an overview of my role. So broadly, the opportunities in ET core into digital, analog, and embedded roles. So Texas Instruments is the largest recruiter with all the three roles, followed by NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Qualcomm. Sometimes Google also comes, and Samsung is known to come rarely. So this year Microsoft has come for the first time, and I'll be telling you about the role in detail. So other opportunities that you may look out for include Intel, Micron, analog devices, and sometimes Synopsys, Cadence, and STM also. And these companies can come for PS, but they rarely come for SI. But do look out for these opportunities off campus in case you cannot land an SI in the first round. So, as I said, there are three main domains. And, the main topics that you need to cover for preparation are ES, MUE, SAS, and concepts for analog. For digital, you need to cover digital design, obviously. Basics of AD up to static timing analysis, as has been mentioned before. Microprocessors and some concepts of compa. And you need to know the basics of CP, that is computer programming. In embedded systems, it is similar to digital, but the priorities are different. So programming is given much more
more network problems, I guess. Give us 2 more minutes. We'll figure this out. Guys, please bear with us for 2 more minutes. If Akshay's internet issues have not been solved, then we'll directly move on to the question and answer session. Till that time, please enter all your queries in the Google form. We'll select some of the questions and post to the speakers. Guys, so we'll move on to the question and answer session. I would request the speakers to please switch on their cameras and the mics. Okay, great. So the first question is for Akshay Venugopal and Akshay Aserkar. The question is it possible to get an IT role in PS2/placement during fourth year if you've done an SI in ET or vice versa?
I think it should be possible. That shouldn't be any sort of hindrance.
All right. So the next question is again for Akshay only. The question says, I have interest in robotics and I'm more inclined towards embedded systems rather than chip design. I personally don't like MUE and ED, but love to study DD. From what I know, companies mainly take MTech people for embedded role. How far is this true? And
Specifically, last time the embedded role means the only company that really took for embedded was Texas Instruments, and they did take only ME. But if you are specifically interested in robotics or embedded, I would suggest you could try for off-campus internships because there aren't any companies that do come for embedded. But other than that, you could, if you still are interested in trying a digital role, you could definitely try a digital role if you are if you still like DT, because again, digital ro- uh, digital roles in general open up the gateway to a lot of ET roles. But yeah.
Okay, fair. So the next question is for Raashi. The question says, what does an average BCG interview look like? Besides the case, what else is asked and how to prepare for that? What companies come for consulting during placements and which semester do better companies come? So we can select our PS semester accordingly.
Okay, so we'll go question by question. Let me know if I miss out anything. First, how does your interview look like? You begin with your intro. I was advised by my seniors that my intro should ideally be for 1 minute exact. I should not exceed that. You begin with your internships. You begin with your branch first, then your internships. Then you mention the campus commitments that you've had. It's advised that whenever you say your POR, just after that, you give a very, very short description of the major work that you did. Like I was a bosom called for with embryo, so I said I was this, and I was responsible for bringing the chief guest for the sports fest because they don't know what bosom is. So you give them a little description. Once your commitment section ends, you can go on to exploring hobbies if you have time. I was advised that my intro should look very chirpy because your intro sets the tone for your interview. If you seem like a person who's very interested to speak to, they will be also involved in your interview that much. If you seem like a boring person, they are just getting through the interview then. So make sure that your intro sets the vibe. You explain yourself. Like at the end, I usually say that if you don't find me juggling between my two academic degrees, you will find me sipping coffee and reading books because that's what I am. And if I discuss about books, I can, like, if I they ask a question about books, I can explain that. So say a hobby that you can go deep dive into. Once your intro ends, usually I was not asked any fit questions, but people are asked fit questions. Fit questions vary from what are your strengths, what has been the most difficult situation that you were put in, and how did you get out of that, something like that. These are basic questions that you will find on Google, and you can frame your own answer. After that, there's the actual case. Once the actual case interview ends, you are supposed to ask questions either about the case or about anything else that you would like from the interviewer. That is the ideal structure of the interview. Interviews usually last for about 25 to 30 minutes, max 30, not more than that. This was the interview part. Now, in this SEM, I suppose only BCG came for internships, no other company for consulting internships as such. For placements, companies that come for consulting are open for both SEM 1 and SEM 2. Like BCG would come only once for the placement season, and irrespective of the SEM that you're sitting for, you will be allowed to sit for that company's interview in SEM 1 itself. At times, it varies for company to company. If they still have space, they'll let you sit in SEM 2, like they would come in SEM 2 also. It's preferred that you take SEM 1, but still you have enough opportunities in SEM 2. Any other questions?
Yes. Thank you for your answer. The next question is again for you, Raashi. The question is, I have not started case preparation, nor I have any relevant experience, and neither do I have any POs. What are my chances considering I have a 8.3 CGPA?
Okay. So first of all, case prep. I did not do any case prep before my resume was shortlisted. Very frank about that. I had just heard about how consulting works from my seniors, and that was everything I knew about consulting. Even the types of cases, वो मैंने just मेरा resume shortlist होने के बाद पढ़े थे. मुझे वो भी नहीं पता था. So it's completely okay if you've not done any case prep first. Second, if your resume, whoever is the person asking this question, if you do not have any PORs, that's okay. But you should have other things. Your resume should be one page, it should not be empty. You can have internships, either your PS1 or your off campus internships. You can have 2 to 3 SOPs. You can have volunteer experiences like NSS, Nirman, or Park, something like that. You can also have extracurricular activities if you are a dancer or if you are part of crack, something like that. And it's not necessary to have a POR. Even having a commitment where you worked is enough. And CG criteria, I think they keep it 7 plus. My CG is itself not 8 plus. So it's good to have a good CG, but CG is not the deciding factor. It's a good spike.
All right. Thank you. The next question is for Akshay. The question is, do we need to revise all subjects like EMT, EMAC, and all, or just the main subjects, DD up and all? Also, do we need to remember all formulae or just have a good conceptual understanding of the CDCs?
So like EMT
Okay,
and
so
EMAC. Okay, if Akshay wants to answer this.
I'm sorry. Please
You
continue.
can go ahead. You go ahead. It's fine.
Yeah, so I was going to say that like EMT, EMAC, and these topics are not really necessary. The main topics actually will be told to you in the orientation of the company when they announce their registration. So at that time, just go through whatever they have spoken about. Like Microsoft had explained that they require digital design, uh, computer architecture, and microprocessors and C programming. These are the main topics. So that is what you need to study. And aside from that, it's good to have a basic knowledge of other subjects, but they will not be asked in detail. And even these topics, like as you're saying, the formulas and all are not asked, at least in the interviews. So you don't need to stress too much about that, but you need to know the basic concepts very clearly.
All right. Thank you, Akshay. The next question is for Mrinal. The question is, what edge does an oil engineer have versus a chemical engineer when applying for an oil and gas company? How do we choose our courses in college to focus on the oil and gas industry?
Okay, so while I mean, the one who's asked this question, oil and gas engineer per se, I mean, I've not heard of this branch in any of those colleges, but yeah, if you're talking about petrochemical or petroleum engineer, okay, let me tell you, petroleum engineer is a very it's a very domain specific sector. So if you have experience in that, it does. I mean, Exxon, as when it recruits interns, or Exxon or any other petroleum industry per se, when it recruits interns, it does not distinguish or differentiate between people with petrochemical background, because you're not expected to know much about the petroleum industry when you are interning, right? So even in chemical, there are a lot of intersections with your petroleum industry. Primarily, you'll have CDCs focusing on the basics, and if you are someone who's very enthusiastic to join such an industry, what I would advise you to do is, there are department electives. You will come across this in your second year, second semester, or I mean, in your second and third year, you will be able to take them. For example, you can take something called petroleum engineering, or plant safety operations, something similar like that. So all these are subjects which will help you enhance your knowledge in that sector. But for an internship, it is not necessary that you know the nitty-gritties of what happens in a petroleum industry. You just needed to have that enthusiasm and curiosity, to like that you're enthusiastic about this. And if possible, do present your PS1. Suppose you've done your PS1 in Indian Oil or any similar petrochemical company for that matter. I think that might help. But again, that's not necessary for your internship. Any other questions?
Thank you for your answer. So you mentioned PS1 in your answer. The next question is for Akshay, and that's also related to PS1 only. The question is saying, so the guy who wanted to ask this question wants to know, how much does the PS1 project help in core electronics? Akshay, if you have an answer for that.
Yeah, so I mean, technically it depends on what your PS1 project is. As far as I know, no PS1 project goes into as much depth as like a project in a summer, like an SI on like a major company. But your PS1 project, if you do end up with like a embedded project, say for example, you worked with like an Arduino or Raspberry Pi or something like that, it'll still give you some sort of edge in terms of your interviews, where you will have some idea about some basic circuit theory, you'll have some idea about some basic programming. So those projects, even though the PS projects might seem small, they will give you an idea of some of the things that you will need to apply in the future. Like my PS1 project, I had designed a PCB, which PCB design is not exactly something that is done in Qualcomm or something, but they do layout design of other components. So I can apply some of the things I've learned here into something like that.
Okay, fair. Thank you. Mrinal, the next question is for you. The question says, did you also apply off campus for SI? If yes, please explain the process, like how to approach the companies and what is the usual process.
So, I mean, okay, Exxon was a day zero company, so I did not apply off campus for SI. And okay, so I had made a plan. I had a plan in my mind that definitely I would want a core internship in my profile because I'm inclined towards core. So even if I don't get across a campus internship, I would want to go off campus. So just shortlist a few companies. I mean, I to name a few, I can name Shell, Chevron. These are also top oil and natural gas corporations who come for internships, but they don't come to our campus. So they have applications open. You can go to their website. You can see. I mean, in the month of August to October, that's the time when companies usually open their internships profile. So you could definitely visit their profile and their website, and you can put up a resume. So the first thing which you need to do for an off-campus internship again is make the resume ready, because you will be selling your resume to the company, right? So make your resume ready by August. I mean, August is also too late. Try preparing your resume right from now, I would suggest, because Exxon came last August, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I mean, don't get disheartened. There are plenty of opportunities on campus for core. Definitely less than IT or ET for that matter, but I think you'll get into a company very easily if you have a good resume and you're confident about your skills. So yeah, I think that's. Or also for off campus, one more thing to mention. LinkedIn has helped me a lot in those terms. I mean, if you want to go for core roles, I'm not sure if LinkedIn would be of great help, but for roles such as marketing, sales, for interning in companies, I think you need to create as many connections as you can and then approach them, maybe message them if they have certain intern vacancies. So yeah, I mean, that's the way to go about it if you want to hustle for off-campus opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrinal. There were a couple of questions on machine learning for Akshay and Akshaya. So one of those questions is, as somebody who also dabbles in ML, will its knowledge be helpful for roles in NVIDIA or similar companies, as a lot of their products focus on ML specific hardware?
Yeah, so if you have knowledge in ML in NVIDIA or specific companies, like one thing I'd say, I'm not really sure about NVIDIA, but in Qualcomm there is an ML team. So if you apply for the software role, you could stand a chance to be in the ML team. So like there is definitely some edge to having ML knowledge, at least in the companies like Qualcomm, Nvidia, and all. There is a growing need for ML and AI, and they would probably consider that as an edge.
All right, thank you. There was one more question for you only, Akshay. Uh, so that person is asking, can we put unofficial projects with professors in campus in my resume? And also, do we need to prepare different resumes for different companies, or is it prepared by superset only?
So I mean, you could put an unofficial project as well, as long as it has a tangible outcome that has some sort of benefit to your resume. Again, like how people have specified being like keep your resume to one page, I would also agree with the same sentiment. Try to avoid stretching your resume too long. As far as creating different resumes for different companies, it mainly depends on the profiles. Like if you're applying for a role that requires more specification in a specific domain or something. Say for example, you have a lot of projects in AI or something, but you're trying to apply for a role in electronics, you would probably remove those sections. You could do that, but it's try to stick to one page. You don't usually have to try and edit your resume for every company, but just use one resume that you set on Superset.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for your answer. So thank you all. I would really like to thank our speakers and all the people who've attended the meet. The presentations and the recordings will be shared with all of you. Thank you all for attending. So we're going to end the meet now.